Okay, yes, this is shameful. Over here, we've never been connected to the ground we walk on. These lands are foreign lands, still. Shameful. To see the Black man more comfortable in the streets where he was put than in the forest where freedom is found. Shameful. That she's forgotten cinnamon sticks as tokens and the buckeye as a charm. Shameful. That we've forgotten rivers covered our scent and the grass that made itself available as a bed and hiding space. The bloodhound has scared us out of the woods, and the German shepherd has ripped us to shreds. No wonder we're afraid to run with the wolf and the bear. We have been drowned in the same rivers that baptized us and masked our nervous sweats that hit our lips and tasted like freedom. Shameful. We've lost the taste of sap in the tree and the smell of sugarcane stenches like work sweats that never cease. We lost peace. We couldn't stop and smell the flowers. We were too busy running for our lives, and still are. Thank you.
How did you get the inspiration for that?
It was just, that was purely the ancestors. That was purely the ancestors. And tomorrow is Halloween, and I released it in 2021 on Halloween. And I guess that was the Halloween message for me in 2021, the year after lockdown. And I just decided to, I'm a poetess, so I write, but this would be my first attempt at a video poem, or what I have been researching and reading about, video poetry. And it's an experimental media form, and poetry is lacking a certain freshness right now. And so I felt the ancestors just pushing me to use my gift for media, and to also use my intuition and my gift of sight and sound. Well, Katie's a Taurus. I'm a Taurus. So I'm I just really in life I use my senses. It's deeply important to me to have a very sensual experience with the world. And so that was what the ancestors gave me. And it's really interesting because there were no real like breaks, or like I didn't have to work on it too hard. It just was. So I feel that's yes.
See, Kathy. Thank you for joining us.
I snuck in from my, I won't be able to stay long. I'm on the training for the spiritual growth, but I eased out to ease into.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
So we're just about to get started. Well, we've started. We're about to show you a little, or read to you a little bit of this script.
And I guess I was asked to share Shameful, or to read Shameful, because it is really just, it's also the story of the transatlantic slave trade, really the impact of the transatlantic slave trade. And I'm a Black woman, and this work is about Black and brown women. And Shameful really, I guess, puts us in the setting of America.
But check this out. This work has a global reach. Yes, that is my goal. And I was telling Dr. Sherba, my goal has always been to do this nanny project or to uplift this project in 3 places, like geographical places in America, in South Africa, and in Brazil. Yeah, yes, I will. Because when we think about the triangular slave trade, right? Yes, yes, yes. That's what
We
this is
so
about.
we're all feeling
Mhm.
lovely. You feel this.
So that's why I say this touches all of us. And the globe must reckon with this. So with that, I think we're ready.
Okay, so this short piece that we are about to do, this is very casual. This is a read through as we prepare to go to the American Folklore Society annual meeting. But I don't know who is familiar with theater on the call, but this is a documentary style piece. And so what you know, this is real life. So we will get into it. And
Yeah.
this is it.
So we're only going to give you a snippet, 7 minutes.
7 minutes.
So it may seem like we cut it short, but we want you to engage in something right after. So it's kind of like a dry run before we go, but we're not going to give it all because we want you to come back and we want to get your feedback and we want you to see it again and really be a part of this with us. So we're going to give you 7 minutes of it.
This is You Can't Overlove Anything. Who in the audience has a nanny? Who knows a nanny, domestic child care worker? What you are about to see are excerpts taken from 3 interviews. Margaret, a nanny agency owner in 2019, Layla, a mother employer in 2020, and Aries, a nanny in 2023. Margaret, the nanny agency owner, opens for us. Please write down any keywords or phrases and/or any questions you may have. You will be invited to participate in a poetic exercise later on.
90% of our business today is temporary employment, like a temp agency. So we are not, for the majority of people we're placing, we're not really like hoping that they leave because they're our inventory, right? But there are times where a client family has a temporary employee and they fall in love with them so much and they will have them and they will hire them, right?
So it's been about 1.5 years since we had our nanny. I was a middle school teacher for many years in Chicago, and then my husband and I made the decision to move to start our family. At the time, I was finishing up my doctorate and we had no kids. About 3 years into my program, I got pregnant with my first child, who was a daughter, and I stayed home with her. I realized how hard it was going to be to complete my dissertation if I didn't get some outside help. So I went through about 32 people. Okay, I'm just one of those really weird type A, like super helicopter moms. But it was really, really important to me that I get exactly the right person for my kids.
Absolutely. I am Aries. I'm like a month shy of being 34. I'm originally from New York and I live in Northwest Indiana. But I worked outside of Chicago for the past 13 years as a nanny.
So how did I choose her specifically?
I wasn't just a nanny.
I had deal breakers.
I did everything.
She absolutely needed to have a car.
I mean, the car was mine because I was in it all the time. I did the shopping.
She had to have a schedule that was going to work with mine.
I'm a very scheduled person. Half an hour, we're changing, doing something.
And skills related to just the safety of my children was very, very important.
So I just picked them up from school and cleaned the kitchen, wiped things down, whatever.
So for example, if she needed to put a car seat in and out, she could do it in like 10 minutes. And also just the skills of what we call funds of knowledge.
So typically I'm in Indiana, so I'll leave between 6:45 and 7:15. It takes about 45 to an hour to get to work. And then I'm usually home by like 9:30, 10. It's a long day.
Because she's using those funds of knowledge. But she also had culinary skills, which was great for my kids. And she was feeding them things that, again, I wasn't exposing them to. If she needed to throw lunch together for them and make it super fun, she was able to do that every single time. So I love that. There were some basic things like obviously CPR and first aid and things like that. I also have to mention, I don't think we've talked about this. So we are of South Asian descent. So we're Indian. My husband and I were both born in India, so my children are like first generation. We follow Hinduism, and she is kind of walking on the fine line of,
I'm Christian. Yes, I go to church every Sunday. So I go to a bilingual church in Indiana. It's small, but we get down. So I grew up in church, but I also grew up in like the Spanish ministry. I always loved the Spanish ministry.
So there were a lot of ways that we didn't agree in our philosophies or in the way we live our lives, but she never once kind of used her philosophy to trump mine. So, for example,
I think there weren't any issues. Like there was definitely like, because I'm Christian and they were Hindu, but I feel like we respected each other's, religious practices and things, because they would just, it's not, the parents were more Americanized, but the grandparents would come into town and they were a lot more Hindu and like a lot more religious. So they would do their practices, chants, and it didn't even bother me. If anything, like I said, I learned from it. So because I'm a Christian, but very more open-minded, way more spiritual than religious, like they would have me. They have like in the Hindu religion, they have a lot of holidays. So like for Diwali and then like Holi, and there are just different holidays throughout the year. I would help them, the children, like get dressed for that or help them participate and, tell them to get ready or whatever it was, just kind of encourage them to participate in that too, because it was important. I'm also a chameleon personality, so I'll adapt to anything. If I'm with Indians, I'm Indian. If I'm with Hispanics, I'm Hispanic. Like I'm a New Yorker, that's just kind of our flow. Like I'm very well cultured. So I think because when I was interested in that, it wasn't like, oh, you're Indian. I was like, oh, yeah, me too. Put a bindi on my head. Like they loved that I was a part of that. So I think it was because they said like, when you imitate someone, it's almost like complimentary. Like that means you like them or whatever. And I naturally like, not purposely, but I would unconsciously started imitating some of the things. Like I would just like the little Indian style head bobble thing and everything. But yeah, I think because I was open to it, it just helped them to adapt more. But it wasn't, no, they would come on my side too. They would adapt a little bit to mine. But because I lived there, it was more me, for them. So, yeah.
And she was always very respectful to our tradition. She would always ask a lot of questions. She was very thirsty for knowledge to learn more about Hinduism. And at the same time, then I would ask her questions about the religion that she grew up in. And so we learned a lot from each other. But I also wanted her to be knowledgeable about like what was going on in the community that my kids could potentially go to for free, because you're paying the nanny. So obviously, they had to agree to the pay. So we started her with 15 an hour and then we moved her up to 20, which was perfectly acceptable to her.
Now with the pay, always start off rough. And it was still a low number, like 16 an hour, which was not my rate at the time. I knew like at least 20, but I didn't change it. And I was kind of getting to that place where I was like, all right, let me just get something to kind of just pull myself over. So, I did everything. I was not just the nanny. I was the personal assistant. I did the shopping, The car was mine because I was in it all the time. Ran to the store. The mom didn't trust herself to go shopping because she didn't know how to shop. So I was that person. I was just literally everything. And I lived there, right? But we'll stop there. So I don't know if anybody wrote down anything. If anybody, if you got any keywords, like anything, like I asked before, keywords, phrases, anything that stuck out. What you have created, if you have done it, is a poem. And it's a list poem. And I felt like this was a good way to get feedback on what we're doing, because a lot of times nannies have to make lists. And we all make lists. We have to make grocery lists. We have to make just so many lists in our lives. Particularly women, we have to do a lot of listing. So if you have done it, you have a poem, congratulations, you are a poet tonight. And and I would love to hear. I would love to hear your poems. And if you want to take a minute, if you want to take like 2 minutes and give it a title, if you notice a theme, maybe you may not. The theme is obviously domestic childcare work, but there could be a whole nother thing that we uncover. Please. Open the queue. We don't know how to work. I don't know. Robin.
Yes. Okay. Now, and it might not be the actual word that I was looking for, but the very first word that came to mind was commodity. Now, I don't know if, there's another word that I was probably thinking of. And I just jotted a couple of words down. Dehumanization, like not really of self. And the phrase that stuck out for me was more me for them. So it's almost like, I don't know if it has something to do with value of the person, the self. I'm not sure. And I don't even have a title for it, but that's what I got from it. You all did an excellent job. Excellent.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And then if you were to expand on your poem, then perhaps the title would be More Me for Them.
Okay, I see.
And then maybe expand on some of those ideas surrounding, it was kind of breaking up, but I believe you said dehumanization.
Yes.
Yes, not of self.
Right.
And this is when we begin to think about perhaps this is how our women who are doing domestic childcare work, perhaps they are feeling not of self.
Right.
More that. So thank you for your poem.
You're welcome.
All right, next up is Katie.
All right, you can all see me? Sorry, I got little one coughing across from me, but so I actually wrote it on a grocery store list, and its title is For the Love of Lists, because that's just what I had in the kitchen. And then I put nannies. I'll take a picture and I'll send it to you all later.
Yes, please.
So
yeah.
This is what I was trying to, so this is a blend of me capturing exact words from the interviews, and then some things are my own thoughts, but this is what I have. Mm-hmm. Inventory, exactly the right person. I had deal breakers. Christian, Hindu, chameleon. If there weren't any issues, and then parentheses, juxtaposition of interviews, rate discrepancy. I was not just the nanny. I was literally everything. And I lived there, right?
I'll take that in a text. Thank you. Yes. And I also like the title For the Love of List. And it's totally unintentional.
I know. That was interesting.
Thank
I
you.
was like, Ross, I need to write with something. He grabbed me a pencil, but I don't like writing in pencil. So I grabbed my bulldog pen and I was like, give me the store list.
This is what I'm saying, particularly women. We do a lot of listing. It's just what we do. Thank you.
Let's see. All right. Isla.
So I don't have a poem, sorry. I'm not good writing poetry, but I have my practical experience. I just texted Rosangela, I think she didn't see my message, but I thought, my gosh, they talk about my own experience. Because I lived the same in New York. I was a nanny there, and like I don't know the exact word for English, but I think about like I always need to give a lot of me from there, and I didn't have any kind of return. I mean like even if I used to live there, so I mean for money or even how can I say even like emotional kind of return, I didn't have none of them, you know. There was always like say thank you, but they were always like also getting a lot of me. And yeah, that's my feeling about like listening you talking. And I also had one of my host families was South Asian, so it's really similar experience. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you. And it is the poem because it's your experience. You know, you've lived it. Yeah. And it's the poet in me. I have to like it's that's what we call a poem of witness. You know, because you have truly
Exactly.
been in the shoes. So thank you.
Thank you.
So anyone else want to share?
You know, I don't think this is a poem, but I think the thing that stood out for me was the term temporary employee.
Mm.
And I think it's because I come from a time where employees were loyal, and the harder you worked, the longer you stayed. And so the very thought of temporary employee just kind of stung a little bit for me. And then I was writing down what you were saying, how she drove anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour. Okay, keep in mind for $15, they had to bargain on this $15. You said she had culinary skills and she made food prep fun. Like that's not worth more than $15,
Right?
CPR. That's not worth more than $15. She had to cater to not only the employer and had to be adaptable to the Hinduism, even though she was Christian, and she gladly said she was a chameleon. So your actor skills had to be in place, but this is for $15 an hour. She was there every day. And then when the grandparents came, she had to even go a little bit, she had to make herself even smaller in what she believed and even be connected to them. You know, and so I've said all of this was just kind of triggering me in a way. She was saying that even with the pay, she was adaptable, that chameleon thing, having to, she took less than she wanted 16, she took 15, she's there all day. She's a personal assistant. She was the shopper. She said basically everything. And I lived there for $15. And so I don't call it a point, but everything that you said was kind of stinging for me a little bit, you know, and maybe that's something that I don't know much about that personal shoppers. I don't know much about nannies, but I'm just giving you from my own personal experience, how it came from me, how it landed with me.
And you know, it's interesting, because this was just, and thank you for that, Cindy. Thank you, because thank you for sharing that it can be triggering as well. Because I think as the work progresses, it's gonna get even deeper, and it's gonna, you know, it's like we're not even scratching the surface. And I see Katie wrote in the chat, and that line, she was fine with that. That's when I wrote rate discrepancies. I want to make something clear. These two women are not, they don't know each other. We were just able to line up we were able to draw some parallels, and we were able to line up the stories. It literally like a puzzle piece. They don't know each other. You would think that this woman worked for her. At one point I thought she and she kept saying, she was like, I swear, I really think. And I'm like, no, you know, she knows because she interviewed them. But that's how unique these experiences are. And yet we have Isla on the call saying, this is my experience. You know, this is something I've experienced. So it is profound to me. It's profound. These two interviews are totally unrelated.
I wish I could continue because some of the things,
do you want to just mention a few things? Only because we did do 7 minutes. So.
yeah, I just want to mention some things. Yeah.
Well, are you all curious to hear more about anything?
Is it more in depth?
You want us to read the rest? Or some highlighted portions?
Or I feel like this better because I know everybody's very good at it. So if there's like a question you may have that it gets addressed later in the piece, then we can highlight that.
Yeah. Okay. So do you have any questions, anything you want to see, what you're wondering about from these two stories?
I may have missed it, but okay, what are your goals? What is this work?
So I hope this work just, you know what would be really exciting, not exciting, but I know that I've done my part, is if someone stands up and walks out.
Okay.
If someone stands up and walks out, or just has a visceral reaction, not that I'm trying to elicit, a riot or, anything. It's just, I had to find a way to try to make people feel something around the harm that can be done to these women when we're not given what we deserve. Like, my goal is to just simply tell their stories and help employers to reconsider how they engage with basically their domestic workers, because domestic work will not go away.
Yeah.
But there needs to be a shift in its view. Who's valued in doing the work? Because Black and brown women carry that burden of doing this work, where white-bodied women get the privilege of the work while still being dehumanized. It's because it's just the issue of home labor, labor in the home. And then the society will turn the work against us, although we have been carrying the burden of this work, not by our choosing.
Mhm.
So I guess my goal is just to keep, like, you will honor the work that we do.
I was just sharing with her today what I feel is what would be a success is if there's somebody who sees the piece, sees the work, and then they go and they ask for a raise, and then they get that raise.
Mhm. Can I read that?
Yeah, yeah. And it brings us to actually this is critical.
So where can I start? I think that was my biggest takeaway.
Oh, 1 second. This is she's reading an excerpt. This is the nanny that I was just reading for.
I think that was my biggest takeaway just in this whole nannying journey is learning my worth. Because I always say this, try to be as humble as possible. I always had a very high self-esteem. I know I look good. I love myself. I'm a beautiful person, but my worth, that was always a struggle. And I had to figure that out within this career. And it's not been easy. It was the times when I had to text, no, I'm sorry, I need this amount, and I'm shaking, on the other end. But then when they come through and they say, okay, we can do that. And I'm like, oh, this does work. That you can say what you want. And people can say yes or no, but accepting the fact that they can say no, that's okay. But the people that do say yes, they see your worth.
Mhm.
And they'll give it to you if you ask for it. Sometimes. And that's the end.
So it took this particular woman roughly 10 years, maybe 8, maybe she was with the kids that she was speaking about for 7 years. And then she found another family, and then she found another family. So it took her roughly a decade of domestic care work to just simply, while shaking, ask for what she deserves. So,
And that's just asking for a living wage.
Hmm.
this is just one story, but I feel it's appropriate to share that she did things that, it's hard to talk about. It's very, very hard to talk about. Cindy, when you said that she had to make herself so small in the presence of the grandparents, she's thinking, well, they took me in as their own. But then you hear some of these things that she's telling you that she had to do in the presence of the grandparents, throughout the piece. And it is just shocking. It's shocking. So yeah, what do you think? What do you think? Rosangela, yes. Oh, we can't hear you. I think you're muted.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, sorry. This message really resonates with me because I understand I was au pair and nanny too, and I understand the pressure, like when you need to say like no, or when they ask you something, and you feel this pressure of how I'm gonna deny that, what I'm gonna say, what I'm gonna do, because you live with them, so you don't wanna you don't know what they're gonna do with you, and you don't wanna like the vibe in the house be like awful, because So it's not like a horizontal type of relationship. It's totally vertical when you feel that you have like, I don't know, I felt that way like many, many times. And every time that I had to say something about something simple like my vacation or a day off or a holiday that I wanted, or when they asked me to work extra and I didn't want to, I felt like this, I shake too, because okay, how I'm gonna say this? So your work, it's super important, and I want to research that too. So I'm so glad to be here and hear your work. So it's amazing.
Thank you. And you are amazing because
Yes.
this is your story. Isla as well.
Yes.
Ooh.
I'm a little embarrassed to say that, and I'm sure there are other people like me out here because I have no clue. So this was like an education for me. And this may sound really ridiculous, but in my mind, in my imagination, and from television, I always thought it was almost like I didn't know anything about the pay. It had like a an aura of glamour to me in the idea that you would accept someone else in your family. In my mind, I felt like you would be treated like family. It would never dawn on me that there would have to be a negotiation for the pay because you're taking care of my children, you're cooking, you're doing all these things. And so I feel like this was a complete eye opener for me because I've always had some kind of sense of it was like a cushy type job. Like you probably got to watch TV while the children napped, or, you know, I don't know. I never would have imagined the other side. It just looked like fun with the kids during the day and preparing lunch, and you go home. I would never have. So anyway, I'm just saying thank you for the education, and maybe other people will come and see and, you know, kind of champion the work that you're doing, if, you know, in some way, some form. It's important.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Some of the things that there was an interview where the family wanted the nanny to wear white on her job. She couldn't drink off of the cups, the plates. She couldn't drink out of the water bottles. And that was all for $15 an hour. She must come to work in white. And you can't eat anything in this house. Couldn't eat, couldn't drink out of the cups, couldn't eat off the plates, couldn't have the food. And this is why I think it's important, or why she had me read Shameful. Because when we really look at it for what it is, we know what it is.
Yeah.
Just in a different white outfit. You know, especially at the opening of the piece where we have somebody saying, because there are inventory, right? You know, and so it's putting the price on Black and brown bodies. It is the commodifying. And I think Robin used that word in her list poem. I believe that was her first commodity. Yeah, commodity. So it's, yeah. And what's interesting, just to give you a heads up, the nanny is a Black woman. Not sure if she's Afro-Black or Black American. I'm not sure. But Layla's nanny was a white Christian woman. And so you see how it's still, no matter what, it's a labor issue.
Yeah.
You know, this is, I just don't know. I understand
the foundation of it. There's a book that I always come back to when I'm looking at these interviews, especially with the mother employers, and it's called They Were Her Property. That book is on the low. You won't really you'll find it, but you won't. It will change the way you think. And it's by Stephanie Jones Rogers. And it's about white women slave owners in the antebellum South. And there's a chapter in there that's called I Belong to the Missus. And when we think about it, women are the managers of the home. Yes. Right. And when you think historically, the women were the managers of the antebellum South plantations. They were the bookkeepers. They were the ones, handling the who's traded, who's given. Sometimes they were given through lineage. So this woman is given this property, and it's a lot that is hidden about how domestic work has evolved.
They were her property. Could you type that in the chat?
Oh, I've never chatted in the Google Meet before.
I'm going to have to hop off. I have Bible study now, but thank you for inviting me. This was very educational. It's moving.
Thank you. We'll see you soon.
See you soon. Oh, bye-bye.
Okay, bye. I'm trying to thank you, Katie. They Were Her Property. Oh, I'm going to give you a couple books. They Were Her Property. Shadow Mothers. Shadow Mothers is a great one because it talks about the relationship between these two women. And Domestica, which is talks about the immigrant domestic child care worker. And care and cleaning kind of go hand in hand many times. So those are like 3 foundational books that I keep going back to. And there's some others, but there's not much written about this work. Raising Brooklyn is another one. And that one is about Caribbean women who are nannies in Brooklyn. And that was an ethnography.
And if you like film, there are some really stunning and very poignant films about this topic. There's a 60s film. It's called Black Girl. It's a Senegalese film, so it's in French, but it's very, very, I don't want to say beautiful, but it's stunningly shot. Like it's very well shot and great. There's lovely aesthetics, but the story is very powerful. Nanny, which I believe is that Maddie Diop. I can't remember. I think it's another Senegalese
Jusu.
Jusu. Yes, but it's called Nanny. There's an episode of the show Atlanta called Train to the Bone. That's a really great episode. So there are a few things, there are a few things here and there, but it stays on the surface. I think Nanny for me is a very interesting film because it's a horror film. So yeah. Oh, and Roma.
Oh yeah,
Roma.
Roma. Seen Roma.
That's a wonderful.
It's not wonderful, but it's beautifully shot, poignant story.
I think they shot that in
Mexico.
And the last in Babel. Babel is a great film. There's a few very famous actors. Brad Pitt, Kate Blanchett, a few actors, but it's the vignette or story that deals with the domestic worker. That is really, really powerful. So Rosangela, you say you're researching this, so there are like a couple different ways to take it in. And also just like you said, it's been your experience. That's the best research.
So here we are.
Thank you so much for coming to the end. Thank you.
Staying with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you both. This is really wonderful work. My head is spinning because I'm just thinking of all the things you could do with this. Like,
Tell us.
so one, I'm thinking like the book project, right? Like, how interesting would it be to present qualitative data in this poetic format that you presented tonight? I was just thinking of Isla and Rosangela to think about your own work and how you might present research in a way that also engages in this creative presentation style, where you're presenting findings, but the way that you wove them together to make the point that these stories are separate yet overlapping. That these are, that is so brilliant. And I really think that you need to do something with that. I almost think that this could be like a methodology book that you put together, like how to do this kind of work, like how to turn qualitative research into an art. But an art that all art has meaning, but there's a particular meaning in form, in obviously in content and the voices that you're elevating. Really amazing. I've known about this project for a long time, but this is the first time that Dr. Black actually let me hear any of the interviews. So, and again, it's really interesting because I don't know if I told you this too. I put in the chat that I used to be a nanny when I first moved to New York City, and in Brooklyn. It was me and the Caribbean ladies every afternoon waiting for these very, very wealthy kids to come out of their private school. We'd be sitting there standing. Did you know this?
No, wow. Anything.
Oh yeah. So I was working, I moved to New York City. I didn't have a lot of money when I first moved there. I was working part-time in publishing, working like 30 hours a week, part-time for $15,000 a year. It was terrible. While I was doing my master's, my MFA. And so I found this job listed, and the pay was good for New York City. It was only 4 hours a day, and they paid me $25 an hour. So when I interviewed for this job, the girl and mother both interviewed me, and she was 10 years old at the time. I will never forget. So the girl is just like, okay, now go ahead and ask the questions. So the girl was really interviewing me. And then she decided on the spot right afterward that she wanted to hire me. So they literally came chasing me down before I got on the subway to come offer me the position. Little did I know the hellish temperament that lurked beneath that child.
It's like, I was telling her about the movie Uptown Girls with Brittany Murphy and Dakota Fanning, and it's that kind of thing. And she tells her, she's like, you work for me. And she's the child.
That's what she literally told me that one time. She also told me, she'd have homework to do. She's like, well, I have homework tonight and you're the one who's going to do it or help me with it. And I was like, what? No, honey, I graduated 4th grade a long time ago. Like, that is for you to do. But her mom was scandalized because I used to make her do chores. Because I was like, because I had to entertain her every minute. Like, this girl could not be left though. She could not entertain herself. So it was like, and then the mom didn't want me to spend money. So the girl always wanted to do like, go make pottery. And I took her to Popeyes for the first time. I thought the parents were going to kill me. I didn't know you could feed this girl Popeyes. So I took her to Popeyes and I did all these things that were like very much like my working class roots. Like, what's wrong with Popeyes? But I also made her clean the house. And one time the parents came home and caught her sweeping the stoop. And they were like, what is she doing? And I was like, well, she was bored. And I told her, if you're bored, I'll give you something to do. Like my mom always did. And they didn't like that very much. But I mean, they kept me around or whatever. But I definitely like had to toughen her up a little bit and give her, I was like, you want to order me around. This is not how we're going to do things. But, I also was the same thing. Like, I didn't want to say no to certain I felt like I had to tiptoe around this little girl who really ruled the roost. She was the only child. Mom had her after 40. She was like their miracle baby, and parents both had these very high level crazy jobs. Yeah, they were, and then they would give me very fancy gifts for, tickets to Broadway shows and things that I could never afford when I first moved to New York. So it was kind of nice, but I hated that job so much. I mean, it was like, and then they would invite me to dinner and I would need to eat. So I would go with them just because so I could eat. And I was like, oh, I got to sit with them for another damn hour and a half. And
And what's that? So you could eat, you know?
Yeah. So I was like,
At
okay.
first I had it. I didn't have none of this. They just like want me to work and none like gifts or Broadway tickets, nothing.
Yeah, this is where the difference, I think, right? The privilege, like being this white girl coming to New York City, like was a very different experience in many ways, right? Like hearing the story is like, I felt like I wonder how, and she tended to have white nannies, white or Asian nannies, the girl, and they tended to be educated. She was looking for girls, for like women who were either in school. I think she required a bachelor's degree. In fact.
Well, it's interesting because the mother that I was reading for, she wanted a white nanny.
Yeah.
And she told the Indian family, all her, the extended family. And she says that in the piece, like there's a lot of extended family and she had to win their approval, but she specifically wanted a white nanny. And because that's what she wanted. And it's really interesting because it's layered. It's layered because it's a labor issue. Oh, this is what I want to say about that nanny. She was going to school. She was getting her education. Yeah. And then she stopped so that she could nanny.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, the thing Isla, would you mind sharing the story about what your family said? Not your family, the family there said when you got accepted.
Yes. So yeah, I was living with a Jewish family in New York, Long Island, and one of the kids were three teenagers, so 11, 12, and 17. So the 17 girl was applying to the universities, and I got a scholarship. I got to University of Georgia, and she wasn't getting like any kind of offers or good offers, and she didn't have any scholarship. So the mom was like really that the nanny like, and she told me this with another words, but like, you are getting a scholarship and my daughter is not getting a scholarship. And she asked me like, okay, are you being here after you conclude, you finish your PhD, or are you going back to Brazil? I told you, I don't know, maybe I'm going back to Brazil to help there, to bring to my country when I'm learning in the United States. And she was like, really? And are you getting a scholarship here? I was, my gosh, I don't believe that. And another day she was drunk and she told the same for all her friends in front of me, say like how absurd it was, like her daughter didn't have any scholarship and I got one.
some people are just bitter.
Yeah, nasty.
Yeah. And
And
then it's
the envy, right? Like, because this
There's
woman,
one more thing. Sorry, my boys, he told me, oh, how are you doing this with your English?
you know what? See, these are the stories that it's like, this is
wow.
you. It's not you. It's these families, and the families make up the society. Yeah,
And they are immigrants. You know, there is a lot of families that are also immigrants. They are directly immigrants. They're not like their parents immigrant. No, they are immigrants. And like they know what we are living. You know, we are also immigrants, but they don't have this kind of empathy. That's really weird.
Did they have a lot of, did they come from a high class background in their country of origin?
I don't know, because they always say like they said, because okay, they are Jewish and they are Russian, so they always say that they came like with no money, but they never told me what their parents were in the country, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mhm. Yeah,
Good
and I mean, I think that
story about it, right? Like it's just like a general story about
Or
it.
could it's her? Could it's her? You.
Like they never went into detail about their
Who they
financial
were.
stat. Yeah. Mhm.
No, they only like want to show me that they how can I say, like they came to here really poor and they grow. You know, like that's like the way that they wanna show is that okay, they achieve it like the success.
Right.
You
Right.
know, exactly.
They want to forget some things about themselves. And that's it. Yeah. Mhm.
so this is what another thing that I'm thinking of here too. Like it just, even just our distinct experiences here, right? The intersections of class, of race, of immigration status, and all of these other things that factor into obviously what you're talking about here, the particular experiences of Black and brown women, right? The way in which they have a particular level of dehumanization. And again, like I rarely hear about male nannies. So I would be really interested to hear what their experiences were. But I do think that there's something to be, there's something bigger to share here. Like the other project I'm thinking of is a documentary where you weave in the interviews and the creative pieces that you just presented, right? I can't even imagine how incredible that would be to like follow like 3 nannies, right? And then you're weaving together these stories, and even like 3 very different women, for example, and show how their lives as nannies look so different from one another's. Like, right? Like I went to New York to do my master's degree, and I took the nanny job because I was like, they're paying more money than anything else that I can get in the city, right? And other than that, the other job I had was working as a personal assistant to a writer for $9 an hour. And she was having me like clean up her dog's pee and like go across the street and fetch her like room temperature water. And then she would paint the little dog's nails. And I was like, oh my God, I was supposed to be assisting her with writing projects. And so that was my other first job. These are the jobs that I had with my college degree. And I was like, why did I get a degree? And I owe all these student loans. And this is the best I can do. But, I just feel like, but even still in those experiences, like they treated me a certain way because of me being this white woman in their house. And like them like, oh, well, she's going to whatever I think it was the new school where I was at the time. So like they had a particular view versus what I was describing, where it's like, oh, how did you do that? Because they've primed their kids their entire life to get into like all these Ivy League schools, allegedly, right? Like they've done all these things, and they've basically prepared them. They've probably poured tons of money into like test prep and sports and activities and all kinds of things. And then here you are with a scholarship just because you're brilliant. And they're like, well, wait a minute, our money didn't do for us what she could do for herself. And so then they create this narrative in their mind, like that of you being less worthy. So it's very interesting. I think that there's a lot. I mean, I really hope you get this out into the world soon. It's really amazing work. In multiple formats.
This is what
Thank you for sharing.
Well, thank you. We are going to do our best at the conference. We'll let you know how it goes. And thank you so much for coming. Thank you. Oh, and we had prizes. Dr. Sherba is a prize winner. Hey. Yeah, he won the prize.
One prize.
So
Yeah, we do
we'll
have
talk
another-
about that. Another prize winner, but
Yes,
they couldn't make the call. But this is so helpful. Yes, thank you so much. And thank you. Can I just get small feedback on the poem portion? Or was everybody comfortable with that? Was it weird or like instant like okay. I just want to make sure everybody was good with it.
I wish the
Instagram
friends could do that also.
Yes, but I didn't. I should have asked, but I can't see the number.
Yeah.
Mhm. But if you did write down anything, anybody who was on here, then you have a poem, and please feel free to DM me. And
We would love for you to stay in touch and be on the ride with us. We'll stay in touch with you. Can we have your emails? Some kind of way? Maybe Dr. Sherwood, you can email me. Yes. And Katie, I'm glad you said documentary, because I was telling her the next thing is the documentary portion. I also told her this is a process. This is a way to get people paid. You know, it is. When you spoke about a methodology book, I'm like, I was telling her, yeah, I wrote that in a, you know, to write
Yeah.
I already did it. But so we'll see how it goes. If I
Yeah.
get
You should look at Stephanie Tolliver's. I want to say the title. It's something like "In Darkened Story Work," but Stephanie Tolliver has a book on. What was that?
those were
I think it's called "In Darkened Story Work," or something like that. Is what she kind of she takes this idea of like of Black women storytelling. And her
Yes.
whole entire book it's a way of doing qualitative research that really centers Black women's stories.
Mhm.
And I think that would be a good model for you for the kind of methodology book that you could do.
Mhm.
It's gotten a lot of attention in education studies, so especially in literacy. She's a literacy scholar, so I would definitely check that one out.
Yes, they're putting this work out of education.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, it's okay. I'm fine. They don't, I don't think society is ready to fully take in that Black and brown women are educating children, like younger ones, like the babies, you know, on up. We can care for them and we're gone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, we can't see you.
You can't see it now?
No,
We can't see. We cannot see.
so I guess they told us
We're done.
but can you see
But-
us?
We can see you. You're frozen, but
We can't see you, but yeah. So we're in the library and they're telling us to get out.
I think it.
I need to go also. I think I'm the only person in the building, the UGA right now.
oh,
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
so much. Have a good night.
But
We'll
yes,
stay in
thank
touch with
you.
you. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
thank you so much. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. All right. Okay. Oh, shut down.
Yeah, we was on there 5 hours, 3 minutes.